Rodzina by Karen Cushman, Chapter 5. Western Nebraska. "Go back to your seat, Rodzina," Miss Doctor said without even opening her eyes as I slid into the seat next to her. "I want to go back to the orphanage. I told you, orphanages are not equipped to keep children permanently. I will not go somewhere to be a slave. I'd rather die." Miss Doctor opened her eyes. "The people who come for you orphans do not want slaves. No one takes orphans just to be kind. They want unpaid servants. Those old ladies, they would have given you a home, Rodzina," she said, her Z buzzing like an entire hive of angry bees. "They would have worked me to death and not mourned at all." "Well then, Miss Brodsky, tell me exactly what it is you want, and the entire mechanism of the Association of Aid Societies, the great city of Chicago, and the sovereign state of Illinois will not rest until they find you exactly the right home." I figured she was making fun, but thought I'd tell her anyway. "Maybe a nice family who wants a daughter, not a servant. With a mama and a papa and some little kids. Boys maybe, little boys. And I would like them to have a house and a yard and plenty to eat." She rolled her eyes. "Anything else?" "Well, they don't have to be Polish. Mama would like it if they were Catholic, but Papa didn't think much of any religion at all, so I guess it doesn't matter. He said the Brodskys have been non-believers since the 16th century, when Pint Pot Latuski became Bishop of Posen for a bribe of 12,000 ducats, and he didn't plan to be the first to defect." "You can omit the commentary, Miss Rodzina." The doctor took off her glasses and rubbed her eyes. "You are an orphan. If a family offers you a home, you will take it. If I will not be a servant, if I will be safe and warm and fed." "We will do our best. We always do." "You mean peony and oleander were your best?" "Go back to your seat, Rodzina." All night and the next day we rattled and swayed, stopped and started again. My body ached like I'd spent the night toting rocks instead of just trying to sleep. Who would have thought someone could get so tired and sore just from rattling and swaying? Out the window the empty plains went on, and here and there were mileage signs for poky little towns with western-sounding names. Dead Mule Junction 10 miles, Wild Horse Ridge 25 miles, Lick Skillet this way, Buck Snort that way. When the train stopped in a town called Rotten Luck, Mr. Sprott took us out to stretch our legs. The air smelled of dust and cows. I watched the little kids carefully to make sure they didn't take off, get run over by a cow, or blow away in the dusty wind. "My daddy could have named this place," said Spud. "How do you mean?" said Sammy. "He worked at the lumber mill and saved his money and bought a little store, and then he sold the store and bought a saloon, and then he began to drink, went broke, and went back to work at the lumber mill, and then he died. When my dad was drinking, he would whup me with a frying pan to save me from the gallows," said Joe. "My pa used to whip me on the soles of my feet so no one could see," Chester added. They all looked at me. "My papa never whipped me," I said. "I'll tell you what I think about that in 2 words. Impossible," said Chester. "Telling falsehoods is plumb wicked," sang Mickey Dooley. "Lying is a sin. When you go to heaven, they won't let you in." "Never," I said, and it was no lie. My papa was big, with big, strong hands. He always said Brodskys work with their heads, not their hands, but it was his hands that kept us alive. He went to the stockyards every day but Sunday, where he slit the throats of pigs born to be hams, lard, and leather for the people of America. Papa stood ankle-deep in blood as the squealing pigs came by, hanging from their feet by an overhead belt, and he took a strong knife and opened their throats. His feet swelled and blistered from all those hours on the hard floor. In the summer he tied a handkerchief over his mouth and nose to keep out the flies and mosquitoes, and the sweat poured off of him. In winter the unheated room was thick with steam from hot water and hot blood, and he could barely see to cut the pig and not his own arm. In all seasons he came home stinking of pigs and fear, but for all his size and big hands, my papa was a gentle man. "Watch the rest of the kids for me for a minute," I said to Spud as I climbed back onto the train. "Miss Doctor," I said, standing next to her seat. She opened her eyes and sighed. "And they can't hit." She closed her eyes again. The next morning, while Sprott, cigar in his teeth as always, slept, and Miss Doctor read her book, I sat and watched Nebraska go by. Slowly I became aware of a ruckus. The boys had plopped down in the aisle and were taking off their shoes and socks. "Gold dern," said Chester, looking at Sammy's right foot, black and crusty with grime. "I bet that's the dirtiest foot on this train." "Bet it ain't," said Sammy. Bet, the magic word. Half a carload of orphans came over to look at Sammy's foot and their own, argue and wager. And then Sammy took off his other shoe and stuck his left foot in the air. He was right. That one was the dirtiest foot on the train. Peach pits and marbles went into the pocket of Sammy's patched knickers. Then they all began to unravel their socks. I sure couldn't figure out what they were up to. Whistling through a gap in his teeth, Chester wrapped the yarn around a dried-up old apple and kept winding and winding, and after long minutes he had a ball. What is it about boys and balls? If there is snow or a stone or an apple or some socks, there's a ball. And if there's a ball, there's a game. I know this because of my brothers Toddy and Jan, who turned everything round or almost round into a ball. One time when Mama was to be out late, she gave me 10 cents to buy chopped meat so I could have dinner ready when she and Papa got home. And while I was slicing bread, Toddy grabbed the meat, rolled it into a round shape, and threw it to Jan. And back and forth went the meatball until Jan made a wild throw and it hit the ceiling and stuck. "Get it down," I hollered, punching Jan on his arm, "or you'll be the one to tell Papa that his supper's on the ceiling." Toddy lifted Jan, but he couldn't reach it. I lifted Jan, but he still couldn't reach. Toddy took a hold of the packing crate we used for a table and moved it over, and I stood on it and lifted Jan, who was then able to scoop the meat off the ceiling. But my foot went through the crate, and we tumbled to the floor, meatball rolling into the corner. Toddy and Jan tried to fix the crate while I dusted off the meatball and turned it into meatloaf. Papa said it was the best he ever ate. My remembering was interrupted by a plop on my head. "Sorry, Potato Nose," said Chester as he retrieved the ball. Seemed Sammy, Joe, Chester, Spud, and Mickey Dooley had started a baseball game in the aisle. Muffled shouts and cheers filled the car. "You're out!" "Not by a mile." "Slide, Kelly, slide." "He ain't King Kelly, I am." "No, me. I'm Cap Anson, star of the greatest team in the league, the Chicago White Stockings," said Joe. "I want to be the striker," Sammy shouted. "You?" said Mickey Dooley. "You couldn't hit a bull's butt with a bass fiddle." Sammy just laughed, and Sammy, who swung at Joe every chance he got. But he didn't get mad at Mickey Dooley. No one got mad at Mickey Dooley. How could you get mad at a kid who was smiling all the time? Lacey stood quietly and watched them, and then she asked, "What are you doing?" "We're playing baseball, dummy," said Spud. "What's baseball?" "Why, only the greatest game in the world. You're out," he shouted at Sammy loud enough to make Lacey jump. "How do you play?" "Get away, Cabbage Head. I got a game to play, and you're in my way." Spud turned to Sammy. "You're out, you no-good cheating lowlife." "Ro, you tell me, how do you play baseball?" Never having seen an actual baseball game, I wasn't at all sure, but I thought I could figure it out. After watching for a few minutes, I told her, "Okay, see, the thrower spits on the ball and throws it at the striker. That's the guy with the water dipper." "Why?" she asked. "Is he trying to hit him?" "Yes, but the striker tries not to get hit because of the spit all over the ball, I'd say." "Why is the striker waving the water dipper around?" "He's trying to keep that spitty ball away from him. If he by chance hits the ball with the dipper, he runs and tries to hide. And if that guy over there catches it, why, they commence arguing about it." "Run home," Chester shouted to Joe. "Go on home." How could they go home, I wondered, when they were orphans or just like the rest of us, home. I was too sad to talk to Lacey anymore, so I just shut down the explaining machine. The baseball game turned into a boxing match. Chester sat on Spud, and Mickey cheered him on. "Smack him one! Hit him in the head! You can't hurt him there!" Spud and Chester were tumbling down the aisle, rolling like a bowling ball straight into Mr. Sprott. That woke him up, got Miss Doctor's attention, and put an end to the game in a hurry. "Sit!" Mr. Sprott bellowed. "I don't want to hear a sound above a whisper from you louts. Sit there and thank God that you are here and not sleeping on the streets of Chicago."